Friday, folks. I'm driving down the road and I wanted to kind of do this little talk about what it takes to be a homesteader. Now, when you're sitting on a couch in a house with a heat pump, city water, running water, electricity to flip the switch, a store 5 minutes away, it's really easy to romanticize moving off grid, living out in the middle of nowhere, snow gently falling outside, a nice warm fire going in a stove or fireplace. Those things are all real easy to romanticize. But the hard reality of it is when you move off grid, convenience is no longer a byword, especially if you don't have tons of money. Now, if you can live comfortably off grid if you've got $500,000. And if you're living in a pretty urban area, there's people who live off grid in more urban areas. But I'm talking to the people who want to go remote. I'm talking to the people who want to unplug from society, get away from the rat race, get away from the violence and the upheaval of society. The number one quality above all else that someone has to have in order to be a homesteader is you gotta have tenacity. You gotta be tenacious like a little rat terrier. I see so many people who are devastated by inconveniences, unplanned emergencies, just the day-to-day living, especially out here where we live in the desert. There's sand, there's weather, there's distance, there is water issues, there's solar issues, there's heating issues. And so many people who come out here are not prepared because they're not tenacious. You have to have some tenacity. If you're a tenacious person and you'll stick with something and gnaw on it like a bone, then you'll do pretty good off grid. I don't care what your background is. But along with tenacity, you've got to have some logistical skills. I see this a lot. People do not know how to plan. Logistics out here it's vital. You've got to have the ability to plan. You've got to have the ability to be able to do more than one thing at a time. You have to have a lot of things going at one time. Now, there again, if you got $500,000, you're gonna be fine. You can make mistakes, and I think that's probably the number one thing that people do when they come out here. They make a lot of mistakes moving off grid, and they can be costly mistakes. They can be a lot of money thrown away. So having some planning, that's one of the things that we do for people. We help them plan. We help them strategize. We help lay out according to what their needs are and within their budget. I've seen a lot of people waste a lot of money when they could have got by with less. And some people's dreams are just bigger than their pocketbook. So you have to have some logistical skills. If you don't have logistical skills, you need to know somebody who does. What do I mean by logistics? Let's break it down. You've got a budget, so you've got to be able to buy what you can afford and live as comfortably as you want to live. You have to be able to do all of that in a time frame that's the most efficient. And your lifestyle day to day has to run efficiently. It can't run chaotic. You're not 5 miles from the store. You're not at a place where you can just run to town. When we go to town, it takes us all day. Sholo's 80 miles away. By the time we get up, get everything fed, get everything took care of at the house, get everything ready, get everything planned, propane, water, what do we need on the homestead? Do we need some feed? Do we need some medicine? What do we need? So we have to plan all that out. Then we leave. We go to town. We can't just go to Lowe's, okay? We can't just go to TSC. We can't just, no, we go to all of them because we're trying to get as much done as we can in that one trip, because gas is expensive. Wear and tear on our vehicles is expensive. That's why I always say we come back from town looking like the Clampetts go to town, because we have so much stuff packed in our vehicle, packed on a trailer, because we're trying to get as much done as we can. So logistics is important. The next thing you got to have is you got to have some kind of skills. You got to have skills that will help impact the community. You got to have skills that will help you on the homestead. And if you don't have those skills, you need to develop those skills before you ever decide to move off grid. I was talking with someone the other day, and a husband and wife had moved out here, and while he was on the homestead trying to build a homestead, she was staying in an Airbnb because she couldn't cook over an open fire. She couldn't manage in a camper. And that's a skill. To live a camp lifestyle until you get something more comfortable is a skill. And right along with that, depending on how long it takes, you got to be tenacious about it. You got to be able to endure. You got to be able to build. You got to be able to improvise. You got to be a problem solver. That's a skill, by the way. People don't understand that you have to be able to improvise. You have to be able to adapt and overcome. Because if you do not, well, you're going to be stuck. I think it takes a certain amount of imagination to live off grid. You have to be able to imagine things and then build it. It doesn't have to be conventional, it just has to work. Fences, buildings, sheds, ways to protect what you do have. There again, if you got $500,000, hey, you're going to be okay. Most people who move out to these rural areas, the reason they're moving out there is because they stayed too long in civilization when everything was running out. I don't know how many stories I've heard of people just, they couldn't afford it anymore on the income they had. They couldn't afford it anymore where they were at. So they up and left. And you can't be pigeonholed on a homestead. You can't be put in a box. We do a lot of stuff. I've got a lot of skills that I've learned over the years. I can do a little bit of everything. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of some. So if you come out here and you go, well, I'm just going to do this, probably not going to work. You have to be willing to cut firewood. You have to be willing to fix somebody's fence. You have to be willing to crawl under a house. You have to be willing to do a lot of different jobs that the community needs done. And increasingly, there's a lot of elderly people moving off grid because they can't afford to live in the city anymore. They can't afford the taxes. They can't afford anything. So they're moving off grid in a camper and they need help. And you may have to think outside the box. And it's not about money. It's about what you can trade for. And I see a lot of people taking advantage of these folks too. So you got to be tenacious. You got to have some logistical skills, and you got to have some skills. You got to have a ways and means of doing stuff. Before you decide to move off grid, get some tools, some quality tools. Don't skimp. If you can't afford the best tools, find out, call people, talk to people. Again, that's part of logistics. They can figure out what kind of tools you need and get proficient in them before you move out here. I see people with the best of tools who can't use them. Don't know how. And the homestead life, I'm sorry to tell you, is not so much about beautification as it is sustainability and usability. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to work. And I see a lot of people who move out here with a nice fancy automobile, and you see them when they first move out and oh, it's so nice and it's so pretty, and then 6 months later, because the roads are on, the bumpers are off, the windshield's cracked, it's scraped up because they had to go through brush to go around the mud hole. They slid into a ditch, they slid into a tree. You want something that's going to take and last. You want something that's going to take and do the job. Doesn't have to be pretty, has to be reliable, sustainable. You have to be able to work on it. If you have a vehicle that you have to go to town to get it worked on for the simplest of things, probably not the best off-grid option. Particularly if you don't have mechanic skills. And I don't know if this is a skill or if it's just a quality. A lot of us we're just products of how we were raised. We're products of our environment. And you have to be okay with yourself, and you have to be okay with the person you're moving off grid with. Let me tell you something. If you have a problem marriage, moving off grid is not going to help that marriage. Yeah, you're going to be isolated, but all the same problems you had before are still there, on top of it being hard. So you got to be okay with the person you're moving off grid with. You got to have a quality where you're okay with silence. You're okay with spending time alone, because even if you move off grid with a loved one, they're not going to be there all the time. They're going to be busy doing stuff. So you got to be okay with yourself. You got to have ways and means of entertaining yourself. A lot of times, even in today's society where we have technology, we have Starlink. We've even got a mobile Starlink. But there are times when it goes down. There's times when our power's not sufficient. We had 3 days of rainy days, and our generator quit working. I've got to look at it. I've got to work on it. Don't have time right now. So our power has not been optimal. So we're running it in short spurts. So you have to have books, you have to have card games, you have to have things that you enjoy doing with your spouse, with your loved one, and be able to be okay with that. In today's society, so many people move off grid, and they're so used to the hustle and the bustle and the TV playing and all of that they can't live without distraction. Cell service is bad, those kind of things. So if you are tenacious, you have logistical skills, you have some real life skills. You can weld, you can be a carpenter, you can be a plumber, you can be an electrician, you can do manual labor. Manual labor is a skill. If you got a strong back, willing to help people, that's a skill. It's a fading skill amongst the young people these days. If you have all of those things, you're willing to be lonely. You're willing to be alone. You're willing to go deal with the silence. You can probably make it. I hope this was informative. I hope you guys, I have these thoughts. Sometimes I don't know where to put them. I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people are in such a bad way because they bet the house on this move that they're making, and they get out here and things are really bad because they weren't prepared. And I try to do my best to prepare people. So think about that. And if anybody else has any other things they want to add in the comments, this is just the things that are on my mind today. As always, it's worth what it is. It's free, but hopefully it'll make people think. So that I'm going to get off of here. Remember to like, share, subscribe. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, tell your friends about us. There's a share button right down there at the bottom. Helps us with the old YouTube algorithm. All my deal is I want to educate as many people as I can and save people from as much grief as I can. Get out there, share the gospel, share this lifestyle, and maybe hopefully teach somebody something. So until next time, remember, trust in the Lord, do good, live off the land, enjoy the bounty of it, and we'll see you later.